Hey there. Thank you for joining. My name's Jason, and this is the Freedom Adventure. Today is, November the 2nd, Sunday evening, and just like wrapping up most every other weekend, I'm kind of tying things up for the end of this weekend. All this weekend, I've been kind of working on the solar, or at least the solar beginnings here. I haven't got my solar controller mounted just yet. What I've actually spent pretty much all weekend doing is installing some solar panel mount racks on the top of the camper conversion. Now, that all sounds pretty easy, and none of it was really all that difficult, but man, when I tell you it's time consuming, I mean it's really time consuming. There were some parts that mount to the side of the solar panels. Basically, they've got about 4 bolts for each side, and each one of them takes probably a good solid 15 minutes to get mounted up. I had 6 of those that I had to do, so 30 minutes a piece times 6, you could see the time goes by pretty quick. I'm not complaining. I actually enjoy doing this kind of work, and we're starting to see a lot more progress. As a matter of fact, we're really putting some miles on the progress odometer right now. I don't think it'll be too much longer before we're able to actually get this thing on the road, give it a real shot, see what it's made of, see what we did right, and maybe what we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and do a little bit more work on. I am in the middle of a video right now regarding the solar panel install and actually the complete solar setup, but I'm not done with that video yet. I've got to order some things that's not going to be here until later this week, so I'll be wrapping that one up next weekend. In the meantime, though, I thought I just might kind of show you what I have been doing here for the last several weeks. I haven't done a camper progress report in quite a while, so I figured I'd go ahead and show you what we've done and show you that I haven't been sleeping. I've definitely been working every weekend, and it's kind of like one of those deals you get to the end of the weekend and you're just tuckered out, but you got to keep going if you want to make the progress. Even after a couple of days of work and a weekend gone by, you get to the end of it and you kind of feel like you need another weekend. Again, I enjoy doing this, but I'm still tired. I'm ready to be done with this, if you want to know the truth. There are a few things coming up here in the near future that hopefully is going to be pretty exciting, and I'm going to spring that on you hopefully later this week, and the Freedom Adventure is going to take a turn. The Freedom Adventure up to this point has been basically just on this ambulance camper conversion that you see me sitting in here right now. If everything goes well, we will be making a turn, and the Freedom Adventure is still going to be about this camper, and it's going to be about basically the Freedom Adventure. And what the Freedom Adventure is an opportunity to gather your sanity, get out into nature, do what God intended for us to do. Live like God intended for us to live. If nothing else, it's the ability to escape the rat race, at least for the weekend, maybe a week at a time. I don't know. Maybe one day we'll get lucky and we'll just be able to pretty much live like that altogether. But in the meantime, we just have to work with what we got, and that's kind of what the Freedom Adventure is about. But that's enough rambling. I'll go ahead and I'll show you what I've done here in the last few weeks. There's a few different projects I've been working on. If you've been watching the videos, you've seen probably a couple of them, but I'll just give you a quick synopsis. I'll show you what I have done so far on the solar, kind of show you just a little bit of what else I've done as well. And hey, you know what? If you like the idea of the camper conversion and the direction the channel's going, like and subscribe. Every watch hour counts here for me, and every subscriber definitely counts. And I really appreciate everyone that does. The watch hours help the channel a ton. It helps it get additional watch hours on top of that. Anyway, enough about that. Let me show you what I've done. Well, okay, there it is. The Freedom Adventure, the camper van, the myth, the legend. If you look up at the top there, on top of the roof, you're going to see what appears to be a couple of queen-size bed frames sitting there on top of the bed. But that's not what those are. Those are actually racks that are sold for the purpose of holding solar panels. And you can't see much of them here. I'll get up there in a second. I'll kind of show you what they look like. But you can kind of see just where they're hanging over. And believe it or not, they're really not hanging over very much. Maybe like by about a ½ an inch. But I'm glad for that. I had to trim them down to get them to fit like that because they were actually quite a bit longer than that. I'm pretty stoked about this side over here because eventually I'm going to have an awning over here, and the side of that rack, both the front rack and the rear, are going to give a great spot to mount that awning to. I'm now looking at it from the front, and it's a little bit different perspective, but you can kind of see what I've got going here. There's a rack in the front that's going to hold 3 panels, and then there's a rack in the back which is also going to hold 3 panels. Each panel is a 200 watt solar panel, so in its entirety we will have 1200 watts of solar. When you look at it from here, you could kind of see that the racks are lined up with each other, and hence that is going to be the base, hopefully, to install an awning here eventually. So I'm going to go ahead and climb this ladder and give you guys an idea what it looks like from the top. And you can kind of see, let me zoom out just a little there. Like I said, it looks like a bed frame. And there's one in the rear and one up there in front of that max air fan. The solar panels themselves are about 28, 29 inches wide, so by the time I put 3 of those side by side, it is going to take up that entire rack minus probably about 6 inches. So once again, I'm going to have 1200 watts of solar here. Now, will I get 1200 watts? No, man, probably not. It's being flat up here and not having them angled, I probably won't get that much. Here are a couple of the panels that I'm actually going to be using here, and these things were Rich Solar 200 watt panels, and these are 24 volt panels. Now, like I said, 1200 watts is probably not going to be a thing, but the reason I sized it at 1200 was because my air conditioner by itself pulls roughly about 700 when it's just going gangbusters. Now, at the end of the day, what I really wanted was just enough juice to go ahead and power the air conditioner 100% by the sun's power and still be funneling some in order to charge the batteries up through the day. That way, all through the night, I've got plenty of juice left in my battery bank to go ahead and run the air conditioner through the evening hours. Now, will that be enough? Well, that remains to be seen. That'll have to be a different video. And I will circle back eventually and let you know kind of how it makes it through the night, or you know what, maybe it won't. And we're going to find that out. So what have I been doing here this last month, maybe the last 6 weeks or so? And the answer to that is, quite a bit, actually. I've installed the fresh water system, and I now have running water, which is one big plus when it comes to being off-grid. The fresh water tank's in. All the drain side plumbing has been done, the high side plumbing. Also, the water pump and the water pressure accumulator all installed as well. Now, that alone was a couple, maybe about 3 weekends worth of work, and I'll give you a quick tour of that here in a second. Also, I did go ahead and install the instant hot water heater, and now that's a propane powered water heater, and it actually turned out really, really well. I got good at installing a water heater because unfortunately I ended up having to install 2. The first one that I got from a company called Country Mod. When I went to hook it up and turn it on, nothing, not at all. It wouldn't even power up the control panel, and that was a little bit of a source of contention, but I'm past it now, so whatever. What else have I done here? Let's see. I installed the propane stove, and I've still got one more hose to hook up to that, and I got my propane bottle mounted also on a little propane locker, which I did build a formal locker, but I ended up scrapping that, and I'm just using one of the little storage compartments here in the camper conversion now. Today I ended up, I got this far with it, and I didn't have a whole lot of time left, so what I ended up doing was I pulled out the power inverter, and I went ahead and I hooked it up to the 24-volt battery bank. I knew it was going to be a fairly simple install, and it actually was. There wasn't much to it. Just hook up a couple of battery cables and ground it out. Not a big deal. So I did, and I've got that mounted, and I went ahead and I hooked it up, and now I've officially got 110 power. Now I've still got to hook up my transfer switch and run the 110 outlets in the camper, and that's going to happen another day, but at this point at least I've got the 110. And that's all operating off of by the camper itself. It's not plugged into shore power, although it does have that capability. Last but not least, it's getting cold. As a matter of fact, when I got out here to the shop this morning, it was pretty chilly. I want to say probably in the lower 60s, maybe even the upper 50s. I don't know for sure, but it's definitely getting cold for sure. So I went ahead and I've hooked up my diesel heater. I have not installed my custom little fuel cell yet, That is yet to be done, but the diesel heater is in the camper. They're fairly easy to put in, but you know, being a camper and being a ex-ambulance, it did present some challenges in order to get it mounted. Anyway, guys, like I said, not a big involved video today, but I figured I'd just go ahead and roll it out for you to show you what I've been up to. I hope you guys like it. So let's check it out. Come on. Now, the things that I've done, I may not show you all these things in order, but I'll do my best. My memory's not so great here, so here we go. All right, so here's what I refer to as the water closet. And on the left there, the big white tank, that's my freshwater tank. And looking down, that's just the plumbing there. I've got a valve to where I could dump it all out the bottom if I need to drain. Also got my 12-volt water pump, and behind that is the water pressure accumulator. And then there's the rat's nest of wires that all sits on that, and that is the wiring that's going to go to my brake lights, my tail lights, also all my park lights, running lights, things like that. I just have not got around to doing that stuff yet. And, you know, it is what it is. It's kind of a never-ending project. What can I say? Looking up there, you can see the PEX lines running, and they're got a little bit of a sag in them, but I'm not done yet. I've still got to do some bracing up to where everything is mounted solid. Underneath of the bed platform, you can see I've got more PEX lines going over to where the sink is. And the white PVC there is basically the drain from the sink, and it goes underneath the bed, down underneath of the toilet platform, and then goes over to where the gray tank's at. Okay, here's the sink I installed, and it is 100% installed now at this point. And, you know, not much to say really. It's a sink, it runs water, and I don't have the propane tank hooked up at this point. Actually, it's hooked up, it's just not turned on, but if I were to turn that lever over to the left, the hot water heater kicks on, and by golly, I've got hot water as well. And when I mean hot, I mean really hot. Just a different perspective here. You see my TV sitting on the bed platform over there today. Once I got my power inverter installed, I had to try it with something, and that was the closest guinea pig to try it with. It enabled me to go ahead and get it out of the box, toss that box in the trash can, and throw one more piece in the camper that will eventually become its permanent home. Okay, and this is the Fagati InstaShower 8 Plus. This is the instant hot water heater that I installed. And this is a propane unit, and as you can see, it mounts to the back of the camper. Now, why did I choose the back of the camper? The answer to that is pretty simple, actually. There just wasn't a whole lot of other options. The one option that I was thinking is actually where the propane tank is sitting right now, which I'll show you here in just a minute. But I'm glad we did this because it actually utilized the water closet as well. That's where it occupies the inside or the interior room anyway. But it makes it real easy to get to, and it's not a bad location to put it. I think it looks pretty good. Opening it up, it's basically you've got your purge valve, got your circuit board, and of course you got your on-off switch, which right now, since I've just got it parked and I'm not using it, that's off. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. The Fagati here was quite a bit more than that country mod that I told you about, but at the end of the day, the country mod didn't work, and this works fantastic, so, you know, I guess it's worth that. Now, you probably saw this in here just a minute ago when I was showing you the water system, but the big silver box in front of you, that's the water heater. And again, that's an instant water heater, and the silver line coming off of it right there, that's the gas line that goes to it, or rather the propane line. I went ahead and I installed several little ball valves here so I could go ahead and service this in the winter. And I can go ahead and fill the system up with antifreeze without getting antifreeze inside of the water heater. Now, the wiring on this, I'm going to tell you, I'm not done here yet. There's a lot of fit and finish things that I need to do. And that may be another video, because for every project that you get going on, there's always the final fit and finish items, and right now I'm trying to mock this whole thing up and get it functional. Then as a grand finale, I'm going to go back and handle all those fit and finish items like wiring, like lifting PVC or rather PEX pipe up to where it looks a little straighter, just things like that. Quick note too, that flex line that goes from there over to there, what that is are two lines, and those two lines, one goes to the city water fill, and then we've got the camper freshwater tank fill here as well. So where, just like on an RV, you've got the city water, and then you've got your freshwater fill side by side, and those are vented in addition to that. So it's, like I said, it's just basic RV stuff, only it's all been done on an ambulance platform. Before we finish talking about the water system, this is the side cabinets here on the side of the camper. And you open those up, and what's behind that plywood right there is actually the bathroom / shower. Underneath of this, you can see this is the P-trap for the shower, and also the PVC drain line that goes from this direction over there, and that comes from the sink and then goes over towards a gray water tank. Also are the hot and the cold, the PVC, or excuse me, the PEX lines that go over to the shower. Okay, the big blue box. That's our 3,000 watt power inverter, and what that does is that takes 12 volt power, in my case, that takes 24 volt power off of our battery bank and converts that to 110 volts AC current. So you could run your TV off of that, you could run a box fan or a microwave or vacuum cleaner, just whatever 110 appliance you want to plug in, just so long as it doesn't exceed the 3,000 watts. And in our case, I don't think we're going to get there. As a frame of reference, a microwave pulls about 1,500 watts, and we don't even have a microwave in this machine. At least we don't right now. So I do believe that 3,000 is going to be plenty adequate for what we're doing here. Other thing we got done was this little wild looking machine right there, and that is our Chinese diesel heater. This was about a $110 score on Amazon. Excellent value for how toasty this little sucker gets the inside of this camper. Man, I've used this thing for a lot of reasons. If you want to know why I went with this as opposed to a different heat source, I've got a video on it. So hop on the channel, do a little scratching around, take a look, and check it out, see what you think for yourself. But this thing is amazing. Now, underneath you can see, on top, that's where it routes through into the camper. And if you look underneath here, you've got an intake and exhaust that go underneath of the ambulance, and basically one sucks air in, and of course the exhaust, just like it sounds, it blows the exhaust out. And PVC that you see there, what that is a little Studer vent for the gray tank. Gray tank is right underneath of where that PVC goes through. I've got that little flexible boot there. I'm going to cut that line and put a little flexible boot just in case for some reason, if I ever rack out this gray tank because of low clearance, it won't break that line. It'll basically flex that line instead of snapping it. And the reason I did that is because if you look right down here, directly underneath, that's the valve, the Valterra valve, to go ahead and dump the gray tank. Looking underneath a little further, you could actually see the side of the gray tank. Now that little, what appears to be a olive jar right there with the green liquid in it, that is diesel. And for the time being, while I was just checking out this diesel heater to make sure it worked, that is my fuel tank. And that's not what I'm going to use. I'm actually going to use, I believe it's probably a 3 to 5 gallon fuel jug, which is going to sit in here as well, or possibly in the cabinet right next to it. And I've also ordered a couple of fittings to make that jug work rather than just the typical diesel heater fuel tank. Nothing against them, man. I want a little bit more capacity. That way I'm not constantly having to fill up with diesel. The little cabinet you see there, it's pretty little. Initially, that's where I was going to go ahead and I was going to either remove the door and replace that with a piece of plywood and paint it white, cut a hole in it and stick my instant water heater in there. Or, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. It's just little. Not really a whole lot you could do with it. Some small cargo, that's really about it. But what I ended up deciding to do is go ahead and mount my propane bottle in there, which I'll show you here just real quick. As you can see, the propane bottle fits in there pretty well. The regulator on the top and that hose coming off of there, it's a little bit tight, but everything still closes. There's no pressure on anything. Ultimately, I've got to put that little vent you see, I've got to go ahead and drill the hole in the floor there. If for some reason does purge out propane, that propane will go straight out of the bottom. The box itself is airtight from the inside of the camper, so this works out pretty good. You'd be hard pressed to find a better situation. Now, the last thing I'll show you is, and this was an easy install too. Now the kitchen countertop is on and fully mounted. I was able to go ahead and install our propane stove. And the propane stove is certainly not the most expensive unit out there. And it doesn't matter because with the limited size of this camper conversion, this was really pretty adequate for the build. And it's just a little 2-burner setup, and I'll show you that here in just a second. All right, and like I said, I don't have my propane hose run to this just yet. The electric is also not finished. It is just mounted in place. It'll take me probably a good hour or so to go ahead and finish the connections on this, but not a big deal. I'll probably end up doing that next weekend. Man, doesn't that look good? I mean, for such a little tiny kitchenette, this is pretty impressive. I mean, stainless steel sink, stainless steel trim on the stove, nice little gas 2-burner setup. Man, you know, minimalistic doesn't have to be bland at all, you know. Just because you don't have a whole lot doesn't mean that you can't do the best with what you're doing. We're very, very happy with this. You know, I didn't mention this in the synopsis of what I was going to go ahead and deliver here today, but this is our kitchenette, and right now it's in just what we kind of call couch mode. And the brown countertop there was actually cut out of the same kind of wood that the dinette, or not dinette, but the kitchenette countertop was cut out of. And we bought 2 of those boards, and one serves for a countertop, and then of course one is going to be the dinette top, but also serves, once we put cushions on that, it's going to end up being a couch also. I've still got to get my pedestal rounded up. I don't know if I'm going to use like an adjustable pedestal or one that just, you know, one of those poles that you just screw the base to the floor and you slide the pole in and then put the counter or the tabletop on. I don't know just yet. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought. I've had other irons in the fire up to this point, but it's coming real close to the time that I need to start thinking about this. Also, another thing I'd like to show you here is I'm going to flip one of those bench seats up, and I'll show you kind of the inner workings of that diesel heater too. You can see the vent on the front part of that bench, and that is that's where the heat enters into the camper. Underneath of it, that's where the flex line goes to the basically the outlet of the diesel heater, which I'll show you what I could show you here. Okay, so this box is a little bit of a train wreck right now. A lot of sawdust floating around, a little bit of trash in there, but man, we are far from done with the conversion. And when I do all the fit and finish, we're going to clean this up a little bit, make it look better. But like you can see, that little hose right there comes from the nozzle or the outlet of the diesel heater, goes over top of the batteries, and then of course comes out on the front side. Now we're not done with the bench. We've got to sand it down, paint it, and there's a lot more work to do. But that's all detail stuff. We're getting the big stuff done right now, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll worry about cosmetics here soon. And hopefully within the next few weeks, we're going to be getting to that point because like I said, we are closing in on this at a very rapid pace, and we're going to be able to use this machine hopefully here within the next month, maybe the next 2 months, but we're on our way. As a nice little side benefit of that heater duct running through that battery case, it's also going to serve twofold: one, to keep us warm, and two, it can't hurt to have that radiant heat inside that bench for those batteries. You know, one thing that'll hurt a battery or let it go down is just being in the cold. So while that thing's running, we shouldn't have to worry about that. Well, y'all, that's pretty much all I've got here for tonight. Like I said, thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking the time. If you're watching the video, you've probably got at least a little bit of interest in the old camper conversion, kind of converting an old decommissioned ambulance into a little motorhome. So if it is something you're enjoying, please go ahead and like and subscribe. You probably don't know how much it really does help me when you do that. So if you do, thank you very much. That's really about all I've got for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the little tour. And sorry, man, I'm just tuckered out today. So if I seem a little bit groggy or a little bit tired, there's definitely a good reason for that. Between today and yesterday, I've probably put somewhere around the 20-hour mark in terms of work. And now it's time to go lay on the couch for a little bit, relax, and try to enjoy a couple hours here this evening before we wake up and we go off to the rat race tomorrow once again. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Take care, y'all. Happy adventures, and I really hope I see you soon. Take care.